The warning sirens started at dawn, was making breakfast for his daughter when the first alert flashed across every screen in the colony. Emma looked up from her coloring book, her 6-year-old eyes wide with concern. "Daddy, what's that noise?" Turned down the volume on the kitchen display and forced a smile. "Just a drill, sweetheart, finish your juice." But it was not a drill. Outside Outpost Terraform 7, the collective had arrived with 12 warships. Within an hour, they deployed their barrier gates around the entire colony. The massive structures rose from the ground in a perfect circle, each one humming with energy as they connected to form a dome. The colony was sealed. Lisa rushed through the door, still wearing her lab coat from the Xenobiology Research Center. She grabbed his arm and pulled him into the hallway, away from Emma. "They're saying it's a full siege," she whispered. "The barrier gates, those have never been broken." Nodded slowly. He had heard of the gates. Every soldier in the galaxy knew about them. For 300 years, they had been used to trap enemy forces. No one had ever escaped once the gates went up. Not through force, not through cunning, never. "How long do we have?" asked. 72 hours. Then they shut down the atmospheric processors. Looked back at Emma, who was humming to herself as she colored. 40,000 people lived in this colony, 12 different species. 2,000 of them were human. All of them would suffocate if they made good on their threat. The emergency meeting was held in the Central Command Center. Attended as the chief of colony security, though his role was mostly administrative. The real military power belonged to Commander, who had fought in 4 major wars. Stood at the head of the table, his scaled face grim. "The situation is clear," said. "We have no way through the barrier gates. Our weapons cannot penetrate them. Our ships cannot leave. They have us completely contained." An officer named pulled up technical readouts on the main screen. The data showed the gate structure in detail. Each gate was made of reinforced titanium wrapped in an energy field. The field absorbed all directed energy attacks and redistributed the force across the entire dome. Physical impacts were handled the same way. The gates flexed and bent, but they never broke. "What about negotiations?" someone asked. "The Galactic Council sent a diplomatic ship," replied. "They turned it away. They want us to surrender the colony's mineral processing facilities. If we refuse, everyone dies." The room fell silent. The mining operations on Terraform 7 were the most productive in the sector. Giving them to the would shift the balance of power in this entire region of space. But refusing meant certain death for 40,000 civilians. Sat quietly in his chair, studying the technical readouts. He had learned long ago that talking too much in meetings was a waste of time. Better to listen and think. He zoomed in on the central hub where all the gate supports connected. The design was brilliant. Every structural element fed into that single point, which then distributed stress across the entire network. "We should begin preparing surrender terms," one of the civilian administrators said. "We can negotiate for safe passage of the colonists." "They do not negotiate," said. "They will take the facilities and decide who leaves and who stays as labor." More arguments followed. Every military officer in the room had studied siege warfare. They all reached the same conclusion. The barrier gates could not be broken. That was simply a fact. The only question was how to minimize casualties in the surrender. Raised his hand. The gesture was so unusual that the entire room went quiet. "Yes," I asked. "The gates have a resonance frequency," said. "What happens if we match it?" Shook his head. "We considered that. The energy field adapts within microseconds. It absorbs the resonance and neutralizes it." "What about physical stress?" asked. "Not impact, sustained directional pressure on the central hub." His eyes narrowed. "The material is rated for impacts equivalent to starship collisions. What kind of pressure are you suggesting?" Did not answer immediately. He was doing calculations in his head. Earth gravity versus standard galactic gravity. Human bone density versus other species. The leverage possible with proper technique. The numbers were not good, but they were not impossible either. "Just a thought," said finally, and he left the meeting. That night could not sleep. He sat in his quarters, reviewing everything he knew about siege warfare from Earth's history. Humans had been breaking through fortifications for thousands of years. Walls, gates, castles, nothing stayed unbreakable forever. The key was finding the weakness and applying pressure until something gave. Lisa found him at 3 in the morning, staring at his own hands. "You're scaring me," she said. He looked up at her. They had been married for 8 years. She knew him better than anyone. She could see what he was thinking just by the look in his eyes. "Tell me you're not planning something stupid," she said. "I'm planning something necessary," replied. Lisa sat down next to him. "The gates can't be broken." "Everything can be broken. It's just a matter of how much force you apply and for how long." "You're talking about yourself, aren't you? You're going to try to break it yourself." Did not deny it. There was no point. Lisa was too smart for lies. "They'll kill you," she whispered. "Maybe, but if I don't try, they'll kill all of us." Lisa grabbed his hands, the same hands he had been staring at. "There has to be another way." "Show me one and I'll take it." She could not, no one could. The barrier gates had stood for 3 centuries because they were perfect, almost perfect, had found the weak point, the central hub, the place where all that distributed force had to flow through. If he could apply enough sustained pressure to that exact spot, the resonance would build. The structure would develop microfractures. Those fractures would spread. Eventually, something would break. The question was whether would break first. He held Lisa close and felt her crying against his shoulder. In the next room, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her father was planning to do something that might cost him everything. But that was what fathers did, what humans did. They found a way, no matter the cost. The next morning went to find the veterans. Every colony had them. Retired soldiers from a dozen different species who had seen too much combat and wanted peace. They gathered in a small recreation hall, playing games and telling old war stories. Helena Grant was among them. She had served in Earth's military for 30 years before retiring to the colony. She was 63 years old, but she still had the bearing of a soldier. When walked in, she looked up and knew immediately why he had come. "You're going after the gate," she said. It was not a question. "Yes." The other veterans looked confused. A named laughed. "One man against a barrier gate, that's suicide." But Helena did not laugh. She stood up and walked over too. She looked him in the eyes for a long moment. "You understand what it will cost you?" she asked. "Yes." "And you're doing it anyway?" "Yes." Helena nodded slowly. She turned to the other veterans. "Let me tell you about humans. 20 years ago, I watched a human soldier carry a disabled spacecraft engine for 3 miles through hostile territory. The engine weighed 400 pounds. He had 3 broken ribs and a fractured leg. He carried it because his crew needed it to survive." Frowned, "That's not possible." "That's what everyone says about humans," Helena replied. "Until they see it happen," she looked back at. "Don't break the way other species do. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We learned to break back." Felt something settle in his chest. A certainty. This was going to hurt. It might kill him. But it was Poe spent the next 12 hours preparing, not with weapons or tools. Those would be useless against the barrier gates. Instead, he prepared his mind and his body for what was coming. He started by reviewing the technical data that had provided. The young engineer had been nervous about helping, but had convinced him it was important. The schematics showed every detail of the gate structure. The central hub was exactly where had thought it would be. A single point where 12 massive support beams converged. "The hub is designed to flex," explained, his voice uncertain. "When force is applied from one direction, it bends and redirects the energy across all 12 supports. That's why impacts don't work. The whole dome absorbs the shock." Traced his finger along the diagram. What if the force doesn't stop? What if it keeps hitting the same spot over and over? His eyes widened. The resonance would build, the metal would begin to fatigue, but the amount of sustained force required would be enormous. No weapon we have can maintain that kind of output for more than a few seconds. "I'm not talking about a weapon," said. Stared at him. "You can't be serious, a biological organism. The hub would destroy you long before you damaged it." Did not argue. There was no point in trying to explain something that most species could not understand. Humans were different. Earth was different. The gravity alone made human bones twice as dense as most galactic species. The constant environmental threats had built redundancies into human physiology that seemed excessive to everyone else. Pain tolerance, healing factors, the ability to push past normal limits when survival demanded it. He left his workshop and went to the colony gym. It was late, so the facility was empty, stood in front of the reinforced punching bag and began to work. Not fast, not aggressive, just steady, controlled strikes. He focused on technique, Angle, follow-through, how to transfer his entire body weight into a single point of impact. His knuckles started to split after the first 100 punches. He ignored the blood and kept going. Pain was information. Right now it was telling him that his hands were not ready. He needed to condition them, build up the tolerance. There was not much time, but every minute helped. By the time he stopped, his hands were swollen and raw. He wrapped them carefully and went home. Lisa was waiting in the living room. Emma was asleep in her bed, the door closed. Lisa looked at his wrapped hands and her face went pale. "You're really doing this?" she said. "Yes." "How long?" 4 hours, maybe 5. Lisa closed her eyes, and after, assuming you survive, sat down next to her. "My hands will be destroyed, probably permanent nerve damage. I'll likely fracture my arms. Internal bleeding is almost certain." "But you'll do it anyway." "Yes." Lisa was quiet for a long time. Then she stood and walked to the window. Outside, the barrier gates glowed with a faint blue light. The dome was complete. No one could get in or out. "I've been studying human evolution," Lisa said. "For my research, do you know what makes humans different from most species in the galaxy?" Waited. "It's not intelligence. Dozens of species are smarter. It's not technology. We were using stone tools when others had starships. It's persistence. Earth tried to kill humans with predators, diseases, climate extremes, starvation. And humans just kept going. They adapted. They survived. They thrived." She turned to face him. "They evolved on a paradise world. Perfect weather, abundant food, no natural predators. They had it easier too. Strong, yes, but they never faced the kind of constant threat that humans did." "Where are you going with this?" asked. "I'm saying that what you're about to do is insane by any reasonable standard. But humans don't operate on reasonable standards. We operate on survival standards. And if breaking your body is what it takes to save our daughter, then that's what you'll do." Reached for her hand. "I made a promise when Emma was born I would keep her safe, no matter what." "I know, that's why I'm not trying to stop you." They sat together in silence until Emma woke up, made her breakfast, and pretended that everything was normal. She talked about her coloring book and asked if they could go to the observation deck later. Promised they would, even though he knew he might not be able to keep that promise. After Emma went back to her room to play, prepared himself mentally, he thought about his childhood on Earth, growing up in the Appalachian Mountains where the terrain was rough and the work was hard. His father had owned a small mining operation, had started working there at 14, hauling equipment and breaking rocks. Earth's gravity was 1.3 g, the colony ran at standard 0.9 g. That difference meant muscles and bones had developed under conditions that most species would find crushing. Every step on Earth required more effort. Every lift, every movement. It built a kind of strength that went beyond simple muscle mass. It was structural, foundational. Remembered his father's words, "Pain is temporary, giving up is permanent." Simple philosophy, maybe too simple for the complex politics of galactic society, but it had gotten humans through ice ages and plagues and wars. It would get through the next few hours. He went to find Helena and the other veterans. They were gathered at the recreation hall again, but this time the mood was different. Word had spread through the colony. The human security chief was going to attempt the impossible. Most people thought it was suicide. Some thought it was noble. The veterans understood it was both. Helena stood when entered. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." She nodded and turned to the others. "I want to tell you about the frontier wars. 20 years ago, humanity was new to the galaxy. We were considered weak, soft. Our military was small and our technology was borrowed. The Empire decided to test us. They attacked a human research station. 300 civilians, no defenses." The other veterans leaned in. This was clearly a story they had not heard before. Command said to evacuate, get the civilians to the ships and run, but there was a problem. They had already surrounded the station. The only way out was through them. Helena's voice grew quiet. So the humans decided to go through them, 50 security personnel against 3,000 soldiers. The battle lasted 16 hours. The humans fought with everything they had. Guns, knives, pieces of broken equipment. When their ammunition ran out, they fought with their hands. "What happened?" asked. "All 50 humans died, but they bought enough time for the civilians to escape, and they never attacked another human target because they realized something important. You can break human bodies, but you can't break human will, not when we're protecting something we love. Helena looked at. That's what you're about to show the galaxy again. They think the barrier gates make them invincible. You're going to teach them that nothing is invincible when a human decides otherwise. Felt the weight of those words. He was not a soldier, not a hero, just a father who wanted to protect his daughter. But somehow that had become more than just a personal fight. It had become a symbol. 6 hours left, he said. I need to rest. But he did not rest. Instead, he went to the gate. He stood outside the energy barrier and studied it up close. The hum of power was constant. The structure looked absolutely solid, unbreakable. Placed his hand against the barrier. The energy tingled against his skin. He closed his eyes and visualized what he would do. The angle of approach. The target point on the central hub. The rhythm of strikes. 4 hours of sustained assault. Maybe 5 if his body held out. It was impossible. But impossible just meant no one had done it yet. He went home one last time. Lisa was putting Emma to bed. He stood in the doorway and watched them together, his wife, his daughter, everything that mattered. Emma saw him and smiled. Night-night, Daddy. Good night, sweetheart, I love you. Love you too. After Emma fell asleep, held Lisa close. She was crying but trying to stay quiet. He could feel her shaking against him. Come back to me, she whispered. I will, broken maybe, but I'll come back. Promise. Promise. The next morning walked toward the main barrier gate as the sun rose over the colony. Word had spread throughout Terraform 7. People lined the observation platforms. Some were crying. Others were praying. They had started broadcasting messages, mocking the human who thought he could break their perfect siege. Tried to stop him one last time. This is madness, you'll die for nothing. First punch connected with a sound like thunder. The impact traveled up's arm and into his shoulder. Pain exploded across his knuckles, but he ignored it. He pulled back and struck again and again. The broadcast cut off mid-sentence. Their mocking laughter died as their sensors registered something unexpected. The central hub of the barrier gate was showing stress. Microscopic, almost nothing, but it was there. Settled into a rhythm. Strike, reset, strike, reset. He focused on the exact same spot with every hit. The technique was everything. This was not about wild strength. It was about precision, about transferring every ounce of force through his fist into that single point of metal. 15 minutes passed, then 30. His knuckles split open. Blood ran down his hands and dripped onto the ground. He did not slow down. Watched from a safe distance, his face a mixture of horror and fascination. This is not possible, he muttered to himself. No biological organism can maintain this level of output. But was not thinking about what was possible. He was thinking about Emma, about Lisa, about the 40,000 people trapped under this dome. Every punch was for them. After 1 hour, the commander sent a message to the gate. Human, you are wasting your life. The barrier gates have stood for 3 centuries. Your primitive assault means nothing. Did not respond. He could not spare the breath. His entire world had narrowed to a single point. The hub, the target, the weakness in their perfect system. The stress fracture was growing. Watching from the command center, saw it on his sensors. It's working, he whispered. By the ancestors, it's actually working. But the cost was mounting. Hands were destroyed. The skin had peeled away in several places, exposing raw tissue underneath. His knuckles were shattered. He could feel bone grinding against bone with every impact. The pain was beyond anything he had experienced before. He switched his angle slightly, using the heel of his palm instead of his knuckles. The impacts became heavier, less precise, but more force behind each one. His wrists began to fracture under the strain. 2 hours in, Helena Grant started to cry. She had seen human endurance before, but this was beyond even her experience. His hands looked like raw meat. Blood covered the gate's hub, but he kept going. Lisa watched through the remote cameras, holding Emma close. Their daughter was asking questions, but Lisa could not answer them. All she could do was watch her husband destroy himself 1 punch at a time. Daddy's hurting himself, Emma said, her voice small and frightened. Daddy's protecting us, Lisa replied, though her own voice broke on the words. They were no longer mocking. Their engineers scrambled to reinforce the gate, but the damage was resonating through the structure in ways they had not anticipated. The human had found the one weakness in their design. Sustained, focused, unrelenting pressure on the exact point where all forces converged. At hour 3 could no longer use his hands at all. The bones were too damaged. He switched to elbow strikes. The technique was different, but the principle remained. Same spot, same rhythm, never stopping. His arms began to fracture. Hairline cracks appeared in his radius and ulna. The pain was so intense that his vision started to blur, but muscle memory kept him going. Strike, reset, strike, reset. Approached as close as he dared. "You've done enough. The medical team is ready. Let us get you to treatment." Shook his head. He could not speak anymore. His jaw was clenched too tight, but the message was clear. He was not stopping. The commander stepped back, shaking his head in disbelief. On his world, warriors were celebrated for their skill and courage. But this was something else entirely. This was a kind of will that refused to acknowledge reality, that pushed past every biological limit. The stress fracture had spread through 30% of the hub's central column. The engineers reported that the resonance was building exponentially. If it continued, the entire gate structure would collapse. But surely the human would stop soon. No one could sustain this level of damage and continue. They did not understand humans. At hour 4, vision was fading. Blood loss and shock were taking their toll. His body was shutting down non-essential systems to preserve what little it had left. But the essential system, the one that mattered, was still functioning. The drive to protect, to survive, to refuse defeat. He switched to shoulder rams. His arms were too damaged to be useful anymore. Instead, he turned his entire body into a weapon. He backed up 3 steps, then drove forward with all his weight behind his shoulder. The impact was tremendous. The gate shuddered. The stress fracture spread to 50%. Helena could barely watch anymore. Other veterans had turned away. This was beyond courage. This was beyond anything they had words for. The human body was not designed to endure this kind of punishment. But body had been forged on Earth, where evolution demanded the impossible every single day. The commander sent one final message. "Cease this madness, human. You are dying for nothing. The gate will hold." Heard the words through the haze of pain and exhaustion. He thought about responding. Thought about telling them that they were wrong. That nothing held forever. That humans had been breaking through barriers since the first one picked up a rock and decided to change the world. But he saved his breath. He would need it for the final push. The gate was failing. The engineers could see it now. The central hub was developing macro fractures. The energy field was starting to fluctuate. Power distribution across the dome was becoming unstable. They had minutes at most before catastrophic failure. But the human was failing too. His body was giving out. His legs were barely holding him up. His shoulder was dislocated from the last ram. Internal bleeding had started. His heart was racing, trying to compensate for the blood loss. One more strike, maybe 2. That was all he had left. Backed up 5 steps this time. He took the deepest breath his damaged ribs would allow. He thought about Emma's smile, about Lisa's laugh, about the promise he had made to keep them safe. Then he ran forward and threw everything he had left into one final impact. His entire body hit the central hub. The sound was like a starship collision. The hub cracked. The fracture spread through the entire column in less than a second. Energy feedback surged through the barrier network. The dome flickered. Fell to his knees. He tried to get up for another strike, but his body would not respond. He had nothing left. He had given everything. For a moment, nothing happened. The gate still stood. The dome still glowed, felt despair creeping in. He had failed, destroyed himself for nothing. Then the hub shattered. The sound was like reality itself breaking. The central column split into dozens of pieces. The energy field, suddenly without a distribution point, overloaded. Feedback loops cascaded through the entire barrier network. One by one, the other gates began to fail. The dome collapsed. Emergency evacuation ships from the Galactic Council, which had been waiting just beyond the barrier, rushed forward. Medical teams poured into the colony. The forces, their perfect siege broken by a single human, retreated in confusion and shame. Pitched forward onto the ground. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was Helena running toward him, her face a mask of tears and pride. The last thing he heard was the sound of his daughter calling his name. The medical team reached him 30 seconds later. His vitals were critical, both hands completely destroyed, arms fractured in multiple places, severe internal bleeding, shock, hypothermia from blood loss. But he was alive. They loaded him onto a stretcher and rushed him to the emergency medical center. Lisa and Emma were already there, waiting. Emma was crying. Lisa was trying to be strong for her, but failing. Stood at the shattered gate, staring at the broken hub. His combat experience spanned 4 wars and 50 major battles. He had seen weapons that could level cities and ships that could crack planets, but he had never seen anything like this. One human, bare hands, 4 hours. The impossible made real. Helena approached him, her old soldier's eyes hard. Do you understand now? Turned to her, understand what? What it means when we say humans are, Earth didn't make us strong. It made us stubborn. It made us refuse to accept that some things can't be done. Your species fights with honor and skill. Admirable. But when a human fights, we fight like the universe itself is trying to kill us. Because for millions of years it was. The commander nodded slowly. I have fought beside humans before. I thought I knew what you were capable of. I was wrong. Most species are wrong about us, Helena said. They see our small ships and our borrowed technology and they think we're weak. They don't see what's inside us. The will that got us from stone tools to starships. The determination that carried us through extinctions and ice ages and wars that should have ended us. She looked at the broken gate. That gate stood for 300 years. Your people, every military power in the galaxy considered it unbreakable, decided otherwise, and now the galaxy knows. Humans don't accept limits, we break them. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that was already spreading across every communication network in known space. Are all humans capable of this? Helena's answer was simple and terrifying. Every single one of us. We just hope we never have to prove it. The news spread fast, faster than light travel, faster than diplomatic channels. Within hours, every species in the galaxy knew what had happened at Terraform 7. A human had broken a barrier gate with his bare hands. The footage was everywhere. 4 hours of sustained assault. A body pushed far past its breaking point. A will that refused to quit. The collective went silent. Their reputation, built on 3 centuries of successful sieges, was shattered along with their gate. The word spread through military academies and command centers. The barrier gates were no longer unbreakable. And humans were no longer underestimated. In the medical center, lay unconscious in a stasis pod. The doctors worked frantically to woke up 5 days later. The first thing he saw was Emma's face pressed close to the medical pod window. She had drawn pictures for him. Dozens of them taped all over the walls. Most showed a stick figure daddy standing next to a broken wall. In every picture, the stick figure was smiling. Daddy, Emma pressed her small hands against the glass. You're awake. Lisa appeared behind her, looking exhausted but relieved. The doctors had told her the chances of surviving were less than 30%. The damage to his body had been catastrophic, but humans had surprised them again. His healing factor, enhanced by Earth's harsh evolutionary environment, had kicked in harder than expected. The medical team opened the pod, tried to move his hands, and immediately regretted it. The pain was intense even through the medications. His hands were wrapped in regeneration bandages, but he could feel that something was wrong. The bones had been rebuilt, but the nerve damage was extensive. How bad? He asked Lisa. She did not lie to him. Permanent nerve damage in both hands. You'll regain maybe 60% functionality. The doctors say you'll never have full dexterity again. Looked at his wrapped hands, the price of breaking the gate. He had known it would cost him, but seeing the reality was different from imagining it. These hands had held Emma when she was born, had typed reports and fixed equipment and done 1,000 normal things. They would never be normal again. Was it worth it? Lisa asked quietly. Looked at Emma, who was showing him her drawings and talking about all the things they would do when he got better. Yes, he said. Yes, it was worth it. The news of what had done spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The footage of his 4-hour assault on the gate was being analyzed by every military power. The reaction was split. Some species called him a hero, others called him dangerous. All of them were frightened. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 3 days after the siege ended. Representatives from 40 species gathered to discuss the implications. The debate was heated. This changes everything, a diplomat said. If one human can destroy a barrier gate, what else are they capable of? We should be celebrating human courage, a representative argued. saved 40,000 lives. Or we should be implementing restrictions, a admiral countered. Humans are clearly more dangerous than we realized. Their physical capabilities exceed all previous estimates. The human representative, a calm woman named Cole, listened to the arguments with growing frustration. Finally, she stood. "Let me be very clear," she said. "Is not a soldier, he is not enhanced or modified. He is a civilian security chief who did what any parent would do. He protected his child. If you want to restrict that, good luck." "But the capability," they insisted. "No other species could have done what he did." His voice hardened. "And no other species put those 40,000 civilians in that position. They deployed an illegal siege, responded to save lives. If you want to punish someone, punish the..." The debate went on for hours. In the end, the council could not agree on anything. Some species wanted restrictions on human military service. Others wanted to hire humans as special forces. A few quietly began reconsidering their defense strategies, wondering if barrier gates were obsolete. The collective said nothing publicly, but privately they were in chaos. Their engineers had studied the gate failure obsessively. The conclusion was undeniable. The human had found the one structural weakness in their design and exploited it with a level of physical persistence that should not have been possible. The military command issued a classified order. All barrier gate deployments were suspended indefinitely. The gates would be redesigned based on the assumption that humans might attack them. It was a humiliating admission. 300 years of perfect siege technology made obsolete by one man with bare hands. At Terraform 7, the veterans gathered again. Helena had called the meeting. She wanted to discuss what actions meant for humans across the galaxy. "We're being watched now," she said. "Every human in uniform, every human in a position of authority. They're wondering if we're all like." "Are we?" asked. The veteran had fought alongside humans before, but even he was reconsidering what he knew. Helena thought about it. "Yes and no, most humans will never do what did. We don't want to, we're not violent by nature. But if you threaten what we love, if you trap us with no other options," she paused. "Then yes, every human has that capability inside them. Earth made sure of it." A younger human veteran named Greg spoke up. "I've been getting messages from recruiters. Every military force in the sector wants to hire humans now. They're offering insane contracts." "Of course they are," Helena said. "They see us as weapons now, super soldiers who can do the impossible." "Is that what we are?" Greg asked. "No, we're people who evolved on a hard world. That gave us advantages. Denser bones, higher pain tolerance, better healing. But it also gave us something more important, the belief that we can overcome anything if we're persistent enough." She looked around the room at the assembled veterans. What did was not about being strong, it was about refusing to quit. That's the real human advantage. We don't know when to give up. Had requested a private meeting with Helena. They met in a quiet corner of the colony's observation deck. The commander looked tired. The siege had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. "I have fought in 4 wars," he said. "I have commanded thousands of soldiers. I thought I understood combat, what it means to fight, but showed me something I had never seen before." "What was that?" Helena asked. "The will that breaks reality itself. On my world, we honor warriors for their skill, their strategy, their courage in battle, but had none of that. He just refused to accept that the gate could not be broken, and somehow that was enough." Helena nodded. "Humans call it determination, stubbornness, grit. Whatever word you use, it comes from the same place. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived by refusing to accept death." Was quiet for a moment. "Are all humans like this?" Helena had been asked that question a dozen times in the past week. Her answer was always the same. "Every single one of us. Some hide it better than others. Some never need to use it. But when a human is pushed to the edge, when everything we love is threatened, we all have that fire inside us." "That is terrifying," said softly. "Yes, but it's also why you want humans as allies, not enemies." The political fallout continued for weeks. Some species began treating humans with new respect. Others became more distant, fearful of what humans might do. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Defense pacts were reconsidered. The balance of galactic power shifted slightly, all because one man had broken a gate. The term, human reckoning, started appearing in military reports. It referred to the moment when you realized that humans were capable of more than you thought possible. Every species that had underestimated humans was experiencing it now. Was released from the medical center after 3 weeks. His hands were mostly healed, but the doctors had been right about the nerve damage. He could grip things, but fine motor control was limited. Writing was difficult. Using tools required concentration. Emma did not care. She held his damaged hands and told him about everything he had missed while he was sleeping. Lisa walked beside them, one hand on his arm, supporting him when his strength failed. They walked past the shattered gate. The colony had left it standing as a memorial. Pieces of the broken hub were scattered around the base. People had started leaving offerings, flowers, notes, small tokens of gratitude. Stopped and looked at it. 4 hours of his life, 4 hours that had cost him so much. His hands, his health, his privacy. The galaxy knew his name now, knew his face. He could never go back to being just a security chief. "Do you regret it?" Lisa asked. Thought about it, the pain, the permanent damage. The way people looked at him now with a mixture of awe and fear. Then he looked at Emma, who was trying to climb on a piece of the broken gate, laughing when Lisa told her to be careful. "No," he said, "I don't regret it." Approached them, the had become a frequent visitor. He said it was to coordinate colony security, but everyone knew the real reason. He was trying to understand humans. Said formally, "I have a proposal." Waited. The Galactic Council wants to establish training programs, multi-species security forces that can respond to crisis situations. They want human advisors, people who can teach other species about human methods. "I'm not a soldier," said. "No, but you understand something that most species do not. How to persist when victory seems impossible. That is a skill worth teaching." Looked at his damaged hands. "I'm not sure what I could teach anyone." "You already taught the entire galaxy," replied. "You showed us that determination matters more than technology, that will matters more than strength. That is a lesson no classroom could provide." Did not answer immediately. The idea of training others, of turning his suffering into something useful, had appeal. But it also meant accepting what he had become, a symbol, an example, the human who broke the unbreakable gate. "I'll think about it," he said finally. Nodded and left them alone. That night, sat with Helena in the Veterans Hall. The old soldier had become something of a mentor to him. She understood the burden of being held up as an example. "They want me to train people," said. "I know, asked my opinion first." "What did you tell him?" "That you would do whatever you thought was right. That's what humans do." Looked at his wrapped hands. "I just wanted to save my family." "And you did, but you also saved 40,000 others. You broke a siege that was supposed to be unbreakable. Whether you wanted it or not, you changed how the galaxy sees humans." "Is that a good thing?" Helena considered the question carefully. "It's a necessary thing. The galaxy needs to know what humans are capable of, not to fear us, but to understand us. To know that we're not just another species with borrowed technology. We're survivors, fighters, protectors." She leaned forward. "The Veterans Network is growing. Humans across the galaxy reaching out, sharing stories. Everyone wants to know if they could do what you did. And the answer is yes. Maybe not everyone could break a gate, but everyone could make the choice you made. To sacrifice yourself for something greater." Was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since he woke up. 6 months after the siege, returned to work, not as security chief, but as a consultant. His hands had healed as much as they were going to. The nerve damage was permanent. He could grip things, but writing was slow and awkward. Operating complex equipment required adaptive tools. Simple tasks that he had never thought about before now required concentration. Emma had adjusted better than expected. The nightmares had faded after the first month. Now she told her friends at school that her daddy was a hero, though she did not fully understand what that meant. To her, he was just daddy. The man who made her breakfast and read her stories and sometimes had trouble opening jars. Lisa continued her research, but her focus had shifted. She was now studying human physiological adaptations, trying to help other species understand why humans could do things that seemed impossible. Her work was becoming popular across the galaxy. Not everyone wanted to fear humans. Some wanted to understand them instead. The training program that had proposed became reality. Spent 3 days a week working with multi-species security teams. He did not teach them how to break gates with their hands. Instead, he taught them about persistence, about solving problems when the obvious solutions failed, about refusing to give up when everything looked hopeless. The other species struggled with the concepts at first. They were used to structured thinking, protocols, procedures. His approach was different. He taught them to keep trying different angles until something worked, to embrace failure as information rather than defeat, to push past their comfort zones. "But what if we have tried everything?" a young officer asked during one session. Held up his hands. "Then you try again, harder, different. The gate did not break on my first punch or my 100th. It broke after 4 hours because I kept going. That is the lesson, not strength, not skill, just refusing to quit." Attended many of the training sessions. The commander had become fascinated by human psychology. He was writing a paper on comparative combat philosophy, examining how different evolutionary environments shaped military thinking. "Your people fight like you expect to lose," he told one day, "but you do it anyway." Thought about that? Maybe, on Earth we lost a lot. Ice ages, plagues, predators, but we survived by adapting, by trying new things when the old ways failed. I guess that carried over into how we approach problems. "Most species fight to win," said. "Humans fight to survive. There is a difference." Is there? Yes, if you fight to win, you can accept defeat. If you fight to survive, defeat is not an option. That makes humans unpredictable, dangerous. Met his eyes. "Are you afraid of us now?" Considered the question carefully. "Not afraid, but respectful in a way I was not before. I understand now why Earth is classified as a... It is not just the gravity or the predators. It is what those things created, a species that does not understand the word impossible." The veterans' network that Helena had started grew rapidly. Humans across the galaxy connected, sharing stories and experiences. They were not organizing militarily, nothing like that. But they were building a community, a support system for humans who found themselves representing their entire species in alien environments. Helena had become the unofficial leader of this network. She coordinated communications and helped humans who were struggling with the pressure of being seen as exceptional. The network had a simple rule: support each other, share knowledge. Remember that we are human first, symbols second. "We are being watched," she told during one of their regular meetings. "Every human in a public role, they are waiting to see if we are all like you." "I hope they are disappointed," said. "What I did should not be normal." "But it is normal, for humans at least. Not everyone will break a gate, but everyone has that capability inside them. We need to make sure the galaxy understands the difference between capability and intention." The collective remained silent on the matter of the siege. They had not issued any official statements. They had not tried to retaliate. They had simply withdrawn from several contested systems and redesigned their entire siege doctrine. Word eventually leaked about their new protocols. All barrier gates now included warnings about sustained physical assault. Engineering teams were trained to watch for resonance buildup. Defensive positions were established to prevent anyone from reaching the central hubs. The gates themselves were being redesigned with multiple redundant support systems. All because one human had refused to accept that they were unbreakable. The political situation stabilized after a few months. The Galactic Council passed something called the Terraform 7 Resolution. It established new protocols for siege situations, prioritizing civilian safety over military advantage. It also officially recognized humans as a hypersistent species requiring special consideration in conflict planning. The resolution was controversial. Some species saw it as giving humans special treatment. Others saw it as a necessary acknowledgement of reality. Human representatives argued that it was not about special treatment. It was about understanding that humans approached problems differently than most species. The vote passed narrowly. The galaxy was learning to adapt to humanity's presence. Slowly, awkwardly, but learning. Took Emma to the memorial site on her 7th birthday. The broken gate had been partially reconstructed as a monument. Fragments of the original hub were preserved under protective glass. Plaques in 12 different languages told the story of the siege and its breaking. Emma read the plaques carefully, her reading skills improving every day. "Daddy, did it really hurt?" Knelt down to her level, his knees complaining. "Yes, sweetheart, it hurt a lot." "Then why did you do it?" "Because sometimes doing the right thing hurts, and we do it anyway." Emma thought about that for a moment, then she hugged him tightly. "I'm glad you did it, even if it hurt." held her close, feeling the weight of those words. Children understood things that adults often forgot. That love meant sacrifice, that protection meant risk, that some things were worth the cost. Lisa joined them, carrying flowers to place at the memorial. Other families were there too, people from a dozen different species, all paying respect to the human who had saved them. Some nodded at. Others kept their distance, still uncertain how to approach him. A young couple approached cautiously. "Mister, we wanted to thank you. Our children were in the colony during the siege. Because of you, they survived." Did not know what to say. He had never been comfortable with gratitude. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," the father said firmly. "You did what only a human could do. We will teach our children to remember that determination can overcome any obstacle." After they left and his family stood quietly at the memorial, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the broken gate fragments. It was peaceful here now. Hard to believe that 6 months ago this had been a battlefield. "Do you think they will remember?" Emma asked. "All those people?" "Yes," Lisa said. "They will remember. Your father changed something important. He showed the galaxy what humans are capable of when we are pushed to our limits." Was not so sure. Memories faded. Today's miracle became tomorrow's footnote. But maybe that was okay. Maybe it was enough that for one moment, one human had done something impossible and reminded the galaxy that some barriers exist only until someone decides to break them. Years passed. Story became part of human culture across the galaxy. Children learned about it in school. Military academies studied the footage. The phrase, "breaking the gate," entered common language, meaning to overcome something that seemed impossible through pure determination. The Gate Memorial became a pilgrimage site. People traveled from across the sector to see where the impossible had happened. Some came to pay respect. Others came seeking inspiration. All of them left with a better understanding of what humans were capable of. Emma grew up with the legacy of her father's actions. It was not always easy. Other children expected her to be exceptional. Teachers treated her differently, but Lisa worked hard to give her a normal childhood, to teach her that being human was about more than just physical capability. On her 16th birthday, Emma asked her father to tell her the complete story, not the sanitized version from the history books. The real story, what it felt like, what he was thinking. They sat in the same recreation hall where the veterans still gathered. Hands were worse now, arthritis setting in from the old injuries, but he could still hold a cup of coffee, still gesture when he talked. "I was terrified," he admitted. "Not of dying, of failing, of knowing that I tried everything and it still was not enough." "But you did not fail," Emma said. "No, but I could have. There was no guarantee, just a calculation that it might be possible and a decision that possible was good enough." "Would you do it again?" Looked at his daughter, nearly grown now, smart, strong, everything he and Lisa had hoped she would become. "If it meant keeping you safe, yes, every time." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been bothering her for years. "Am I supposed to be like you? Everyone expects me to do something great because you did." Shook his head firmly. "No, you are supposed to be yourself. What I did was an extreme situation requiring an extreme response. Most people, human or otherwise, will never face something like that, and that is good. Peaceful lives are valuable too. But what if I do face it? What if something happens and everyone expects me to break a gate? Then you do what you think is right in that moment, not what I did, not what anyone expects, what feels right to you." He held up his hands. "This is not a template. It is a reminder that humans can do hard things when necessary, but necessary is the key word." In a military academy halfway across the galaxy, an instructor showed footage of the siege to a class of cadets. The footage had been edited down to the key moments. The first strike, the building damage, the final crack. The cadets from 8 different species watched in silence. When it ended, the instructor paused the display. "What did you learn from this?" A human cadet raised her hand. "That gates can be broken." "No," the instructor said. "You learned that humans protect their own no matter the cost." Was not a soldier. He was a father, a civilian. But when his family was threatened, he found a way. That is what makes humans dangerous as enemies and valuable as allies. A cadet spoke up. But could other humans do the same thing? The instructor, a retired officer who had served with humans, nodded. "Every single one of them if pushed hard enough. Humans have a saying. Desperation makes you strong." Most species panic when desperate. Humans get creative. That is their real weapon, not strength, not technology, the refusal to accept defeat. The lesson continued, but the cadets kept thinking about what they had seen. One human, 4 hours, an impossible victory. The story would be told for generations, not as a tale of violence, but as a demonstration of will. Its legacy was not the broken gate. It was the understanding that humans, when protecting what they loved, could overcome any obstacle through sheer determination. That lesson spread across every world, every species, every corner of known space. Some feared it, some respected it, but no one ever forgot it, and had become friends over the years. They visited the colony regularly, often bringing military officers who wanted to meet the human who broke the gate. Tolerated these visits, understanding that his story served a purpose larger than himself. One evening, they sat together on the observation deck, watching the stars. Had retired from active duty and was teaching at a military academy. His paper on comparative combat philosophy had been well received. "I still do not fully understand humans," admitted. "Most humans do not understand themselves," replied. "Would you do it again, knowing what you know now about the cost?" Looked at his hands, twisted, and the nerve damage had gotten worse with age. Simple tasks were difficult. He would never play catch with Emma the way he had imagined when she was born. He would never have the manual dexterity for fine work. But Emma was alive. Lisa was alive. 40,000 others were alive. He looked at and nodded, yes, every time. They smiled sadly. "That is what I will never understand. The certainty. Most species would hesitate, calculate, weigh options. Humans just decide and move forward." "It is not certainty," said. "It is necessity. When the choice is between maybe saving everyone or definitely losing everyone, the choice is easy. For humans, perhaps, not for others." They sat in comfortable silence, two veterans from different worlds who had learned to respect each other. The galaxy was safer with humans in it, believed. But anyone who forgot what they were capable of. In the final analysis, story was simple. A father protecting his family, a human refusing to accept the impossible, a moment when determination proved stronger than technology. The story was told 1,000 different ways, translated into 100 languages, studied by a dozen species. But at its heart it remained what it had always been. One man, one choice, one impossible feat. And the whisper across the stars that followed, human reckoning. The moment when the galaxy learned that some species could not be contained, could not be sieged, could not be broken. Because humans had learned long ago on a harsh world far away that survival meant fighting back against impossible odds. And they had never forgotten that lesson. What happens now? To humanity, I mean, now that everyone knows. Helena smiled sadly. Now we live with being known. Some species will respect us, some will fear us, some will try to use us, but none of them will ever underestimate us again. And that might be the most important thing you accomplished. His hands, his arms, his life. The damage was extensive. Some of it would be permanent, but he was alive. That was what mattered. He was alive, and so was everyone else. The siege was broken. The colony was saved. And the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Looked at the commander. "Maybe, but I'd rather die trying than live knowing I gave up." Helena and 3 other human veterans followed him to the gate. They did not speak. There was nothing left to say, had made his choice. He removed his jacket and stood before the central hub. His hands were still wrapped from last night's training. He unwrapped them slowly, revealing the split knuckles and bruised skin. Then he positioned himself at the exact structural weak point had identified. Took a deep breath. 40,000 lives depending on him, one impossible task. He drew back his fist and struck the gate. And sometimes possible was enough. 18 hours, he said. That's when I'm going. Helena nodded. We'll be there.